They came from the stars, an empire stretching across hundreds of systems, calling themselves the Varillians. Tall, cold, calculating predators in every sense of the word. With ships that blotted out our skies and voices that sounded like ice cracking through steel. They didn't come to talk, trade, or learn. They came to conquer. And to them, we were just one more species to crush beneath their clawed boots. One more primitive race to feed their endless hunger for domination. But what they didn't understand, what they couldn't understand, is that humans aren't just prey. We're survivors, fighters, and when backed into a corner, there's no creature in the universe more dangerous than us. It started quietly. A flash of light in the night sky mistaken for a meteor, a few disruptions in satellite feeds, subtle diplomatic frequencies picked up at the edge of our solar system. Scientists speculated for days, but governments knew better. The first contact wasn't on live television or in peace talks. It came in the form of a city leveled in under an hour. No warning, no demands, just a message broadcast in every human language. Asterisk, asterisk. This world belongs to the Varillian Dominion. Surrender prey and you will be processed efficiently. Asterisk, asterisk, processed. That word chilled every spine on Earth. It wasn't war, it was harvesting. In the first week, 10 major cities worldwide were turned to ash. Military scrambled jets, launched missiles, fired into the skies, but it was like throwing rocks at a hurricane. Their technology made ours look like sticks and stones. Nothing we did slowed them down. They weren't here to fight, they were here to feed. And in their cold eyes, humans were just another resource. Another species to dissect, catalog, and consume. But here's the thing they didn't see coming. They didn't understand the kind of rage that bubbles in the human gut when everything we love is threatened. They didn't account for mothers who'd tear through fire for their children. Fathers who'd lift rubble with bloody hands to save strangers. Friends who'd die side by side without hesitation for no reward except loyalty. In their endless conquest, the Varillians had forgotten what real terror looked like. They thought we'd roll over, beg, submit. Instead. We adapted. I was in the resistance from day 5. After the skies above my home turned red by Varillian warcraft. The streets were filled with dust and screams, people stumbling through ash and smoke, looking for something, anything that made sense. I was one of them. I'd lost everything in 68 minutes. My family, my home, my former life, all gone. Just another statistic in the wake of a so-called cleansing protocol. And yet, while others ran, something in me clicked. One minute I was just another face in the crowd. The next, I found myself dragging wounded out of a collapsed fire station, funneling survivors into underground tunnels, marking maps with supply drops and safe zones. We were disorganized, broken, underarmed, but we had fire in our blood. Fire they didn't see coming. We weren't the only ones rallying either. By some miracle, or maybe by the shared instinct of a hunted creature, refusing to die, pockets of resistance sparked across the globe. Farmers wired explosives to tractors. Hackers tore through alien code, finding chinks in their armor. Soldiers turned guerrilla, fighting in broken buildings and burned out forests. Humanity became a scattered but ferocious swarm. Too fast to crush, too angry to die. The tide didn't turn overnight, and we paid a savage price for every small win. For every Varillian we brought down, we lost dozens of our own. But those victories began to matter. Their ships, once untouchable, started falling. Their patrols began to thin. Their smug, mechanical voices grew strained. The Dominion had underestimated us, and they were starting to realize it. Around the 3rd month, a rumor began to circulate, whispers of a special unit of humans who weren't just resisting, they were hunting. They didn't wait for the fight to come to them, they took it to the heart of alien command posts. Hit and fade tactics, biological weapons made from their own tech, terrifying new adaptations that spooked even the most advanced Varelian scouts. They called themselves ghosts, but to the aliens, they earned another title entirely, asterisk, asterisk, the apex strain. Asterisk, asterisk, it was meant as an insult. A mutation caused by desperation. A dangerous anomaly. But we took that name like a badge of honor. The apex strain became a symbol. A reminder that we weren't helpless. We weren't food. We were the storm they had never prepared for. One ghost in particular, though none of us ever saw their face or even knew their real name, was said to have taken down an entire Varelian hunting cruiser by themselves. The story sounded impossible. A single human infiltrating one of those floating death machines, cutting through biometal corridors, planting charges in nerve circuits no outsider should have understood. But the proof was there. The ship exploded 3 clicks outside New Delhi's ruins. Wiped off the sky like a swatted fly, the Dominion began to pull back their forward troops soon after. Not because we were stronger, not because we were winning in the traditional sense, but because we scared them. They weren't used to prey that fought back, that learned, that adapted. They'd seen thousands of civilizations fall, and not one had done what we'd done, become the monsters they feared in the dark. The Varelians thought dominance was defined by size, by strength, by swagger. They never expected that real apex predators rise not from dominance, but from desperation, from vengeance. Still, the war wasn't over. Not by a long shot. For every alien that fell, 5 more emerged from their orbital hatcheries. And their leaders? They were beginning to change their strategy, responding not with arrogance, but caution. They were losing ground, not in numbers, but in confidence. Their algorithms began misfiring, their formations shifting unpredictably. They were adapting too, which meant we had to get even better, even darker. Now, the resistance was preparing for something big, bigger than anything we'd tried before. I can't reveal the full plan yet, not here, not now, not over unsecured channels. But let's just say the next step isn't about defending Earth. It's about sending a message, because for too long, they thought we were easy meat. They called us prey. They thought wrong, because when we come, we don't come with surrender. We come with fire, with blood, with teeth. And if they thought we were dangerous on our planet, they're about to see what happens when we invade theirs. End of transmission. For now. The plan was never about winning in the usual way. We knew from the start that we couldn't match the Varelians ship for ship or weapon for weapon. They had centuries of dominance behind them, whole worlds bent to their will, oceans boiled on a whim. But what they had in technology, we made up for in something they didn't understand: instinct. And the chaos that comes with it. A few weeks after the Delhi strike, everything shifted. You could feel it in the air. Resistant cells that used to work in isolation began linking up. Not always directly, we still couldn't risk open comms. But through runners, coded messages, scattered signal bursts, a kind of underground network was forming. Old bunkers, subway systems, caves anywhere the Varelians didn't think to look or considered beneath them, we reclaimed it. We didn't just hide in the shadows anymore. We owned them. I was stationed near one of these makeshift command posts, buried in the mountains outside what used to be Denver. Cold, dark, and barely holding together, but it was alive. Maps covered the walls, hand-drawn and updated daily. We tracked their movements, collected intercepted transmissions, dissected alien drones, and sent back what we learned. It wasn't much, but every scrap, every wire, every whispered recon log, it all counted. The ghosts came through there too. Not all of them, and never for long. They moved like smoke, always moving, always watching. Some said they used neural blockers to avoid alien sensors. Others claimed they'd been genetically altered. I never saw proof of either, but no one really questioned it. Not when you watch them do the impossible and walk back with barely a scratch. Every time one passed through, survivors would stop and stare just for a moment. Silent admiration. Maybe hope was rare, but it wasn't gone. There was one ghost a woman, I think. No codename, no voice. Just the stare. Eyes sharp as broken glass. She carried something in a sealed canister on her back that pulsed faintly like it was alive. I never spoke to her, no one did, but I caught her looking over the tactical display the day before she vanished again. She pointed to a lower orbit satellite that had gone dark, her finger hovering there longer than it should have dot later that night. A colony ship hovering in mid-orbit detonated into 5 burning fragments. No fire from human missiles. No trace of conventional sabotage. Just gone. Like it never existed. Officially, she didn't exist either. Back then, we were still trying to figure out why we were being targeted. The obvious reasons were there: resources, territory, dominance. But the deeper we dug into their tech, and the few live captives we managed to interrogate, if you could call it that, the less sense it made. The Varelians weren't scavengers. They weren't desperate. They could have moved past Earth and never broken stride. Yet they made it a point to claim us. And us specifically, one scientist, an old biochemist we pulled from a collapsed research station, proposed something terrifying. She believed the Varelians saw us not just as another species to dominate, but as a threat to their future evolution. According to her, string markers found in captured Varelian commanders showed signs of forced DNA adaptations. Some of the materials weren't just foreign, they were ours. Human origin, they weren't just harvesting Earth, they were absorbing patterns. Biological resilience, emotional variance, chemical unpredictability. All the messy traits that made us weak in their eyes. But also unpredictable. Dangerous. They called us unstable. And unstable creatures, if left unchecked, mutate into predators. It added a new layer to everything. We weren't just collateral in some greater war they were trying to snuff us out before. We became something they couldn't control. Funny thing is, by trying to destroy us, they were speeding up the very change they feared. You could see it in the way people changed. Not just emotionally, but biologically. Survivors exposed to Varelian atmospheres for too long started showing signs of accelerated healing, enhanced focus, odd neural patterns during sleep. Even I felt it sometimes. Nights when my dreams weren't dreams, but memories that weren't mine. Split-second instincts that made no sense, moving before shots fired, ducking before debris hit. As if something inside was adjusting, learning. Some called it evolution. Others feared it was contamination. No one really knew for sure, but it was happening quietly, relentlessly. The Dominion didn't speak much, but when we did manage to intercept their high-tier transmissions, the tone had shifted. No more smug declarations. No more submit or perish. Just raw data transmissions, location coordinates, and something else, a new phrase that kept repeating across their inner channels. Asterisk, asterisk, contain the apex emergence. They weren't just at war with us anymore. They were afraid of what we might. Become. One raid changed everything. It started as a standard. Mission secure an abandoned Varelian. Outpost deep beneath an old Arctic mining facility. We detected strange power surges coming from below the ice. At first, we thought it might be a leftover energy core or a dormant shuttle requesting retrieval. We sent in a team of 7. Only 2 made it out. Both were half frozen, bleeding from their ears, eyes clouded. They couldn't even form full sentences. Just fragments, but the one thing they both repeated was this: asterisk, asterisk. It was us in there, trapped, changed, wrong. Asterisk, asterisk, we didn't know what it meant until we recovered the data logs. The Dominion had been running a controlled experiment below the surface. Not just testing, but growing something. Hybridization labs. With humans as the core, they were trying to manufacture their own version of a stock clones, maybe. Enhanced soldiers. Or worse, replacements in case. We adapted beyond what they could manage, but something clearly went wrong. The logs ended. Abruptly, blood smears across screens. Screams, some sort of internal lockdown sequence. Whatever they created didn't listen, didn't care, and now it was gone. Some of us wanted to destroy what was left. Burn the whole site down and never return. But the higher-ups had another idea: find the source. Find where the experiment came from, and follow it back to the heart of the Dominion's command structure, because if they were building us into something, then they had a blueprint, and if we got a hold of it, maybe, just maybe, we wouldn't just level the fight. We'd take the war to their doorstep. That's the mission I'm on now, with a ghost team I barely know, flying in a retrofitted Varelian skimmer we hijacked months ago, slipping between systems using their own codes. We've got limited intel, no backup, and no guarantee we'll survive re-entry if things go sideways, but we've got something they don't. We're human. We don't give up when logic says the battle's lost. We don't bow when the odds are stacked. We bite. We bleed. We adapt. We hunt out every star we pass. Every cold, dead moon in our path is one step closer to the truth they've buried under 1,000 lies. This isn't just about revenge anymore. It's about identity, what we are, what they fear. And what we're becoming. The closer we get to the coordinates ripped from their ship's core, the weirder things are becoming. Our systems glitch with symbols we've never seen before. One of the crew members is having dreams she swears come from someone else's memories. The pulse from the canister we recovered from the Arctic lab is growing stronger. We're being pulled to something, maybe the origin of this so-called apex emergence. Maybe something older or ... Maybe older versions of US, redesigned, discarded, and locked away. Whatever it is. They tried to bury it far from reach, which tells me one thing. It's exactly where we need to go. Because when the stars look down and call us monsters ... they better remember. Asterisk, asterisk. We learned it from them ... asterisk, asterisk, and now we're coming to teach them just how far we're willing to go to win, or die trying . Log. Preparing for descent. No further transmissions until contact is made . Hold on tight. We're about to wake the nightmare. Our descent into the unknown system wasn't just bumpy, it was almost fatal. Whatever was pulling on our ship didn't obey any known gravitational rules. Instruments spun wild, artificial gravity screamed, and even the hull let off a low groan like it was cracking under pressure. No one spoke. Not even the ghosts. Everyone just held on, white-knuckled. We trained for bad landings. This one felt like a warning. When we finally broke through the interference, what we saw silenced the crew for a different reason. There was a planet black, ringed with debris, and cloaked in what looked like ash clouds that stretched for miles. No stars pierced the sky above it. It was like the light had given up trying to reach it, and parked in orbit with something that couldn't be explained. A vessel, if you could call it that, dormant, massive. It didn't move. It didn't transmit. Just suspended there in silence, half alive, half buried in the remains of something ancient . We weren't even sure it was Varelian. The ghost leader, the same one I'd seen with the canister back at the resistance safe zone, stepped forward and stared at the ship through the viewport. No words, no orders. Just a long gaze. Then finally, a single murmur. This is where they lost control. We didn't ask questions. We just prepared. The infiltration didn't begin with firepower. It started with silence. We floated in through a breach in the structure like threading a needle through shattered glass. Inside it got worse. Organic metal fused with bone-like material, strange growths pulsing like leftover organs never properly shut down. Verelian tech was always nasty, always semi-living, but this felt different. It felt abandoned. Or infected. The team moved quick, slow steps on creaking floors. Even though we hadn't made contact with anything hostile yet, everyone was tense. The silence wasn't comforting, it was loud. Like the place was listening. Watching Dot about 30 minutes in, we came across something that made my stomach twist. A wall lined with what looked like containment units, each one housing what could have once been a person. Human shape, but wrong. Bones stretching too long. Skin pale, almost translucent. An eye still open, milky, wide, and completely aware. Dot. It wasn't just hybridization. It was rewriting. Whatever experiment this was, the Verelians had tried to reconstruct humanity from the outside in, not to upgrade us, but to replicate us without our flaws. Only it didn't work. Why would they abandon these? One of the younger crew asked. They didn't, the ghost said flatly. These things broke free first. We kept moving Dot in one of the deeper chambers. The canister on the ghost's back started pulsing rapidly, like a heartbeat accelerating. She placed it on the floor near a central panel that looked more ceremonial than functional. Symbols activated on the walls, not Verelian. Something older. Human-shaped figures etched in spiral patterns, melting into alien outlines. Warfare, fire, something rising from it all. A kind of prophecy, maybe. Then nothing made sense. A low vibration hummed through our bones. One of the crew backed away, whispering that something was wrong, with his head-like thoughts that weren't his were slipping in. Then we all heard it. A voice, not outside, not through comms, but inside us. You came back. It wasn't a threat. It was disappointment. We turned to the ghost for answers. She simply stared at the panel, her expression unchanged. Then she looked at me. I wasn't expecting that. You've felt them, haven't you? She asked me. The dreams? The instincts? I nodded before I even realized what I was doing. You're part of this, she said. That thing inside you, it's one of the first traits they couldn't suppress. It survived extinction. I didn't understand any of it. I wasn't enhanced, wasn't altered, at least I didn't think I was. But something inside me had been changing. The way I sensed danger before it arrived. The dreams I had that always felt real. The faint hum in the base of my skull during Verelian proximity. Turns out a lot of us had. Been changing in small ways, back on Earth. Another subplot had started to form, one that we only got brief updates on through fragmented transmissions. Resistance scientists had started mapping these mutations. They weren't random. Each region where a Verelian vessel had stayed too long showed strange signs in the human DNA, sequence shifts toward faster regeneration, complex problem solving, enhanced fight-or-flight response. And it didn't spread like a virus, it seemed to awaken. In people through exposure, the Dominion had created their worst enemy by touching us. Still, something was wrong. This ship, this place, it wasn't reacting the way we thought it would. There were no Verelians anymore, not active ones. Only remnants. Empty armor. Systems on loop. And those twisted, silent creatures in the walls that looked like us. Or like what came after us. Failed attempts. Then we came across a central chamber larger than anything we'd seen. Floating in the middle, suspended above shattered ground, was a being. Not dead, Dot, not alive, Dot, just Dot, being. It looked human. More human than any of those creatures in the labs. But its skin flickered like it couldn't hold one shape. Eyes constantly shifting color. Muscles flexing and relaxing without motion. Beneath it flowed hundreds of tendrils into the structure around it, Like it was the ship Dot had opened its eyes. This is what they feared most, it said. Its voice hit like wind and thunder all at once. Nof moved. Just noise in our heads. Not your damage. Not your rage. Your will. Your refusal to fall in line. The thing they could never recreate. We raised our weapons. Not because we knew it was hostile, but because we didn't know what it was. The ghost didn't flinch. You kept the others here, she said. You let them form you. The figure's head tilted. We were once many fragments, survivors of error, locked away here so the core dominion would never face us directly. But you, the creature turned toward me again. You carry a part of us. I didn't know what to say. My hands were shaking. I didn't choose this, I said, unsure if my words even mattered. No, but your species did. With every act of survival. Every time you adapted, rebuilt, endured. You evolved beyond fear. And that is why they could never win. Static hit every earcom at once, warning signals. Outside, something massive approached orbit. Through the biosensors, we saw it. A war-class Varelian hive cruiser, descending fast, energy readings off the charts. They're here, said one of the crew. Everyone armed up. The being looked calmly at the ceiling as if it already knew what was coming. They will not let you leave this place, it said, voice colder now. Not with what you've learned. We have limited time. No backup. No escape route planned. Only a few questions left, and none of the answers were safe. You said I carry part of you, I asked, stepping forward, heart racing. What does that mean? The creature leaned closer, not physically, but I felt it descending toward me, until its presence filled my skull. You are the key. Then everything went black. No sound. No light. No floor beneath my feet. Gone. But in that void, something else whispered. Asterisk. This is only the beginning. Asterisk. And when I opened my eyes, I wasn't where I had stood seconds ago. The others were gone. The ghost was gone. And through the cracked ceiling of wherever I had landed, I could see Earth. Only. It wasn't Earth anymore. Not everything was the same. And something had followed me through. The war wasn't over. It was evolving. And now, so was I. I woke up gasping, every part of my body stiff like I'd been frozen in place for days. The ground beneath me was cracked stone, scorched and unfamiliar. Above me, the sky was a pale gray, thick clouds grinding against each other like smoke trapped under glass. At first, I thought I'd been thrown back to Earth, but this wasn't Earth, not even close. Whatever had pulled me through space, or maybe through time, left a part of my mind humming with static. I stood slowly, every breath sharp, like I hadn't breathed real air in hours. Around me, twisted metal carcasses of something that looked half ship, half creature stretched across the landscape, like a battlefield frozen in time. Brighter fragments drifted in the distance wreckage from what I guessed were Dominion crafts. But there were others too. Smaller, with markings that looked human. This place had seen war, a lot of war. I wasn't alone. I could feel it almost immediately, that pressure in the air you get when someone's watching. At first, I thought, it might have been a leftover trait from the entity's presence, the being that had spoken inside my head aboard the derelict ship, but the feeling was too real. Pulsing, a faint whisper crackled across a damaged cum piece clipped to my shoulder, still miraculously working. Do you read? Are you alive? It was faint, broken, but unmistakably human. I grabbed the mic. Repeat that, say again. Silence. Then you're not supposed to be there. Then static again. They knew. Somewhere out there, someone knew where I was. Maybe even how I got separated. But that one sentence said more than the voice probably meant to share. I wasn't supposed to be wherever this was. So what was this place? As I moved down a slope of cracked terrain and past the husks of forgotten battles, I saw the first one, a body, human or close to human. Clothes shredded, breathing mask cracked, but unmistakably earth-based gear. I rushed over, too late. Eyes were glazed, body cold, and something odd, no visible wounds. No blood, just gone, like the life had been drained out through the pores. I checked the gear. A small patch on the arm read an unfamiliar faction name, Nexus Division. That wasn't from our resistance. Not from anything I remembered. The datapad still had power, flickering with a record of text logs, voice messages, and mapping scans. I scrolled through quickly at first. The entries seemed familiar, tracking Varelian artifacts, recon missions, terrain scans. But then, in the last few logs, things shifted. They weren't fighting the Dominion. They were running from something else. The last entry read, asterisk, asterisk. This zone is compromised. The Apex variant has gone fully active. We lost control weeks ago. No one's left but copies and ghosts. If you're reading this, don't make contact. Don't approach it. Turn back. The word Apex asterisk asterisk stood out like a knife in my ribs. All this time, we thought we were the Apex strain. The unpredictable evolution that threatened the Dominion's perfect system. Maybe that was true once, but this was something else. A next step. A version that moved beyond the final tether of control or conscience. I looked at my reflection in the cracked visor of the dead soldier. My eyes were glowing faintly. Not bright, just enough to catch the light. I hadn't noticed it before. I wasn't sure who or what I was anymore. Further down the ridge, I found the first movement. Shadows fast, quiet. Not hostile, not yet, but circling, watching. I hid behind the remains of a container shuttle and watched. They moved like humans, but had that twitch in their motion, too stiff, then too fluid. A mimic effect. Whatever they were, they looked like us, but they weren't us. And they didn't bleed red. They passed without spotting me, but I could hear them murmuring in low, emotionless voices. Subject unstable, preparing integration, identity incomplete. They weren't speaking to each other. They were scanning. I took off down a side trench, sliding along dried gravel until I reached a collapsed tower where more survivors had holed up. A fire burned low in the middle, surrounded by 5 figures wearing a mix of scavenged resistance armor and masks with filters that buzzed when they breathed. One of them rose as I entered, gun half drawn, but stopped when they saw my human features, bloodied, confused, unmasked. "You're not from here," they said. It wasn't a question. "No," I replied, half whispering. "I was on the Ghost mission." Then the ship something pulled me through. The tallest among them stepped forward. "You're from old Earth command lines." He tilted his head as if trying to place me. "That command structure collapsed nearly 18 months ago." I stared. "That's impossible. It's only been hours since I left." They exchanged uncertain glances. "You crossed a fracture zone," one said. "Time, memory, reality, they bend here. And where is here?" I asked. They didn't have a name for it. Only a warning. This planet was the Dominion's failed Genesis world, where they tried to breed perfection, but they lost control. The subjects escaped, turned on them. "Built this," one said, motioning around us. "The Dominion sealed it off. But it's leaking again. Something's waking up." It was never about just Earth, or conquest, or even revenge. This was about containment. And based on everything happening around us, that containment was failing. One of the survivors motioned toward a deep corridor hidden under a fallen bridge. They took one of ours, a scout. "Same signs as you." Voice in the head, strange reactions to Dominion residue. "If they've linked him to the Apex core, they'll begin the replication process. We need to shut it down before they start deploying proxies." I didn't know what proxies were, but from the look in their eyes, I didn't want to find out. We moved that night, through old Dominion tunnels filled with the stench of decay and old fires. Strange symbols glowed on the walls, not just Varelian, but distorted versions of Earth languages twisted into something ritualistic. Hybrid messages that blended DNA, emotion, will, our most human traits into data. This wasn't just war. This was remapping identity, and at the very core of it all, we found him. The scout alive, hooked into something that looked like a living crown of wires, tubes, and pulsing liquid. His eyes glowed brighter than mine, white hot, shaking. When he looked at me, he smiled in that slow, unnatural way. "You're here. You're part of it too," he said through gritted teeth. "We're the seed. We always were. They didn't make Apex." He convulsed before finishing. Something was growing behind him. A shape that crawled from the walls. Not flesh. Not metal. A mirror. It looked like him. Same size, same movements. That emptied out blank dot, then it looked at me, and it began to shift. Skin tone. Hair, posture, it was becoming me. The crew reacted. Fast, pulling me back and firing at the thing before it could complete whatever process had started. But it wasn't just one. More began crawling out of wall crevices, slithering from hatchways, all faceless until they began seeing us, copying. You've triggered the next phase. Someone yelled dot, we ran. Explosions behind us, plasma slicing through cables, burning out corridors. Fire met synthetic flesh. And somewhere deep in the mass of shadow and glowing eyes, I heard that voice again, the one from the derelict ship. "You still don't understand what you are." And truth was, I had no idea if I was entirely human anymore. No idea how much of this was choice versus design. The ghost had warned us, the Dominion had feared it, and now it was all coming apart. We reached the surface just as the sky cracked open. Hundreds of capsules, falling from orbit like raindrops of metal and flame. Dominion reinforcements? No human shape clones copies asterisk something between us and them. Built from the worst of both. Asterisk as the world beneath our feet trembled. As fire rained from above, and as every surviving part of me screamed to run, I finally understood. This wasn't just a battle for survival anymore. This was asterisk evolution, at war with itself asterisk dot, and we had just entered the final stretch, not knowing who the true enemy really was. The sky was burning, not just from fire or falling debris, but with something deeper. A sense, that heavy ache in your chest when you know the world has changed and there's no going back. I remember standing there, shoulders tight, hands scraped raw, watching as a rain of human-like capsules fell all around us. Not Dominion, not clones in the old sense. These were something in between, grown from the Apex blueprint. Copies of copies. More precise this time. More complete. Designed from us, but missing the slow path that made us who we actually are. Struggle, choice. Pained out we ran because we had no strategy left. The ground cracked under impact, metal veins spreading through the stones like roots from a nightmare tree. The others in our team, broken, limping, determined, darted across the wreckage with whatever we had left: knives, scorched rifles, hand-built grenades. The fight had stopped being about winning and became about making it matter. In the chaos, I caught a glimpse of myself, one of the copies pretending to be me. Same build, same scars, same voice when it tried to speak, but hollow, no fear in its eyes, no hesitation in its movements. That's when I knew what the Dominion had been after all along. Not just to replace us, to perfect us, and in doing so, they destroyed the very thing that made us human. The others opened fire on the doppelgangers. Some fell, most didn't flinch even while taking hits. They adapted mid-fight, twisting their forms to tighten armor or deflect sharper rounds. But we weren't trying to outshoot them anymore. We were trying to stop the core, the growth chamber, the source of it all, through there. One of the survivors yelled, pointing to a tunnel pulsing with that eerie rhythm. We'd seen before like a machine trying to breathe. We followed it down jagged pathways into what they'd called the Nexus. Root. That's where the apex seed had taken hold. It wasn't just a lab. It was alive. It wanted to expand, connect everything, make one mind, one body, one will. Dominion logic, repackaged in human skin. That's where we found the ghost again. I don't know how she got free or if she'd ever been captured at all, but there she was, standing in the center of the chamber beside the original apex entity. The one that had spoken to us with no mouth. The one that had said I was the key. Only now it looked tired. Its form flickered, and when it turned toward me, the voice was quieter. "You made it," it said. "I wasn't sure you'd survive the breach." "I didn't," I said. "Not all the way." It nodded, almost like it understood. Maybe it did. It had copies of me stored in its circuits, brain scans, muscle memory, probably even regrets. It knew everything the Dominion had studied. But in that moment, I realized it was no longer in control of what was happening here. Something had pushed past it. The apex copies weren't following its orders anymore. They'd become independent. "You tried to create perfection," I said. "But you forgot why we mattered in the first place." The ghost motioned at the chamber wall. A console pulsed slowly, waiting. "We can still shut this down," she said. "Wipe the network before the signal spreads off-world. But it needs you." I stepped forward. The console reacted symbols shifted, light pulsed up my arm. I could feel it reading me, the truth of me. My failures, betrayals, losses. I saw flashes. My family beneath the rubble of the first Virillian attack. My friend, vaporized in a failed resistance ambush. Every mistake I'd buried, it was all there. Raw, ugly, and real. This is what they feared, the apex entity said. Not your weapons, not your strength. That you could survive with your pain. That you didn't erase it. You carried it. The system offered a choice. A full overwrite wipe the apex network from existence. But not without a price. Connectivity worked both ways. If I linked fully, even for one moment, I'd give it everything I was after that. Separate might not be possible. I looked to the ghost. She already knew. She'd known from the start. "That's why you brought me here," I said. "Not because you're stronger," she replied, "but because you remember why you fight." I moved toward the console. There was no grand speech. No battlefield goodbye. Just metal under my palms and a roar in my ears as the system reached deep into every cell in my body, felt everything, 1,000 streams of consciousness. Virillian captains. Experiment subjects begging for release. Copies of humans that never got to be more than shells. And then I gave it mine, my truth, all of it. Not to destroy it, but to show it something else, what it meant to be imperfect. What it meant to be human, the system began to collapse. Not violently, but like a mine finally letting go of control above us. The sky cracked once more, not with destruction this time, but release. The copies froze, their forms melting softly, falling like ash into the wind. The ground steadied. The voice in my head dimmed, and when I opened my eyes, silence. No apex echo. No watchers. Just the ghost, standing in the dust, as confused as I was. "You're still here," she said, surprised. I think. I paused, breathing deep. I think it understood. For once, it didn't fight back. We regrouped with the last few resistance fighters who'd made it to the surface. No more dropships came. No more clones. The buzz of Virillian ships in the atmosphere. Silent. The war wasn't won in the traditional sense, but it was over. The Dominion lost not because we outgunned them or outnumbered them, but because they failed to understand one thing. We weren't prey. We were never prey. They thought of perfection as a thing you build in a lab. But perfection, real perfection, is choosing to stand back up when everything around you is broken dot. In the days that followed, Earth began to pulse with life again. Cities in ruins turned into havens. Survivors built networks. Families reconnected. The resistance stopped being a movement and started becoming something new. A foundation the story of the apex strain spread. It wasn't just a name for a mission anymore. It became a reminder of who we were in our darkest hour and what we became in the face of extinction. I never told anyone exactly what happened in that chamber. Not all of it. Some stories don't translate cleanly. But one night, looking at the stars, I felt that presence again, far now, distant, like a shadow finally resting. I don't know what will come next. We're still rebuilding, watching space carefully, learning from what's left behind. But one thing is certain now, if they ever come again, Dominion or otherwise, they won't find the same species they did the first time. They'll find something shaped by fire, sharpened by loss, hardened by instinct. They'll find humans. And this time, no one gets to call us prey.